There are words people say in anger, and then there are words that don't fade. Vanessa thought she had spoken the truth. Adrian proved her wrong by saying nothing at all. New York City had a way of making people feel like they were either becoming someone or falling behind. Vanessa Hart refused to fall behind. From the floor-to-ceiling windows of her Manhattan apartment, the city stretched endlessly, glass towers glowing gold under the setting sun, traffic humming like a living organism beneath her. She stood there in a silk blouse, a glass of untouched wine in her hand, watching her own reflection more than the skyline. Behind her, Adrian Cole adjusted the cuff of his shirt, preparing for yet another evening event he didn't particularly care about. "You don't have to come," Vanessa said without turning around. Her tone was casual, but there was something sharper underneath. "It's mostly people from my firm." Adrian smiled faintly. "You say that every time. And you come every time. Because you ask me to." She finally turned, studying him, not with warmth, but with a quiet, measuring gaze. Adrian noticed. He always noticed. "What?" he asked, gentle as ever. "Nothing." She took a sip of wine. "Just thinking." That word had become dangerous lately. Thinking. It meant comparisons. It meant dissatisfaction. It meant she was somewhere in her mind that didn't include him. They arrived at the rooftop venue 30 minutes later, greeted by soft jazz, curated lighting, and people who wore success like a second skin. Vanessa transformed the moment they stepped in, her posture straighter, her smile sharper, her voice more deliberate. "Vanessa," a colleague called out, "we were just talking about your campaign. It's blowing up online." She lit up instantly. That's the goal. Adrian stood beside her, slightly behind, watching as she moved effortlessly through conversations, laughter, subtle negotiations masked as compliments. This was her world. And lately, he felt like a guest in it. "Adrian, right?" one of the men asked, extending a hand. "Yeah. What do you do?" "I'm an architect." The man nodded politely, but his attention drifted almost immediately. "Nice, nice. Vanessa was just telling us about the new partnership deal. Huge numbers." Adrian smiled, but didn't add anything. He had learned something over time. Silence was often more comfortable than forcing relevance. Across the terrace, Vanessa laughed at something Ethan Blake said. Adrian noticed him right away. Ethan had the kind of presence that didn't ask for attention. It assumed it. Expensive watch, effortless confidence, the kind of smile that made people lean in. Vanessa's body language shifted around him, more engaged, more alive. Adrian watched a moment too long. "Hey," Vanessa said when she returned, her energy still high. "You okay?" "Of course." "You're quiet." "I'm always quiet at these things." She hesitated, as if she wanted to say something, but instead she shook her head lightly. "You should talk more. People notice." Adrian met her eyes. "I know." But what he didn't say was this. He also knew what they noticed when he did. They stayed for another hour, though it felt longer. On the way home, the city was louder than usual. Or maybe it was just the silence between them that made everything else sharper. Vanessa scrolled through her phone in the passenger seat, occasionally smiling at something on the screen. "Ethan just closed a deal worth 8 figures, she said suddenly. "That's impressive." "Yeah." A pause. "He's only a few years older than us." Adrian kept his eyes on the road. Good for him. "You don't think about that?" "About what?" "Doing more. Being bigger." Adrian considered the question carefully. I think about building things that last, he said, not just things that look big. Vanessa exhaled softly, almost like disappointment. That's the difference, she murmured. He didn't ask what she meant, but he felt it. That night, as they got ready for bed, Vanessa stood in front of the mirror again, removing her earrings, her makeup, layer by layer, until only her natural face remained. Adrian watched her from the bed. "You were great tonight," he said. She didn't respond immediately. Then, quietly, "Sometimes I feel like I'm outgrowing this life." Adrian's chest tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "This life, or me?" Vanessa met his eyes in the mirror, and for a moment she didn't answer. That silence said more than anything else could have. The changes didn't happen all at once. They rarely do. At first, it was small, so small Adrian almost convinced himself he was imagining it. A slight hesitation before Vanessa responded to his messages. A distracted when he spoke about his day. The way her eyes lingered on her phone screen just a second longer than before. It wasn't distance, not yet. But it was the beginning of something pulling away. Monday mornings used to belong to them. Coffee at the kitchen island, soft music in the background, a quiet exchange of plans for the week ahead. Now, Vanessa's mornings were faster, sharper, like everything else in her life. "I have an early meeting," she said one morning, slipping into a tailored blazer, her voice already somewhere else. "Big client. I can't be late." Adrian leaned against the counter, holding his mug. "You didn't mention it yesterday." "It came up last minute." She grabbed her bag, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. "You look fine," Adrian said gently. "I'm not trying to look fine, Adrian." She adjusted her collar. "I need to look sharp." He nodded. "You do." But she was already gone. The door closed with a quiet click, and the apartment felt different. At work, Vanessa was thriving. Her campaigns were gaining attention, her name circulating in meetings she once wasn't invited to. Promotions were hinted at, opportunities dangled just within reach. And with every step forward, something else felt like it was falling behind. That something had a name. "Do you ever think about expanding your firm?" The question came casually, over dinner one evening. Too casually. Adrian looked up from his plate. "Expanding how?" "I don't know," Vanessa shrugged. "Bigger projects? More visibility? Maybe hiring more people." "I like keeping things focused," he replied. "It gives me control over the work." She smiled, but it wasn't warmth. It was something thinner. "Control is good," she said, "but growth is better." Adrian studied her. "Is this about me or about you?" Vanessa took a sip of wine, avoiding his gaze. "It's about us." The word felt misplaced. Later that week, they attended another event, this one even more exclusive. The kind of place where conversations weren't about dreams anymore, but acquisitions. Vanessa fit seamlessly. Adrian adapted. But adapting was no longer enough. "I didn't see you talking to anyone tonight," she said on the way home, her tone light but edged. "I talked to a few people." "Like who?" He hesitated. "A couple from Boston. They're renovating a property." Vanessa nodded slowly. "That's small." Adrian glanced at her. "It's work." "You used to talk about designing entire city blocks," she continued. "Now it's just renovations?" Her words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. "I still care about what I do," Adrian said quietly. "I know you do," she replied. "I just don't know if it's enough anymore." There it was again. Enough.
The word lingered in the air like something unfinished.
Ethan Blake became a regular presence. Not directly at first, just mentions. Ethan thinks the market is shifting toward luxury developments. Ethan closed another deal. Ethan says timing is everything in this industry. Adrian never asked who Ethan was, because he already knew. He had seen the way Vanessa looked at him that night. Curiosity, admiration, something more dangerous beneath it. One evening, Adrian came home early. The apartment was quiet except for the faint glow of Vanessa's laptop in a living room. She sat curled on the couch, fully absorbed, her expression intent. "What are you working on?" he asked. She startled slightly, then relaxed. "Just reviewing some proposals." He walked closer. On the screen, images of luxury developments, skyline-changing projects, billion-dollar concepts. "This is Ethan's firm," Adrian said. It wasn't the question. Vanessa didn't deny it. "They're doing incredible work," she said. "The kind that actually changes things." Adrian nodded slowly. "And mine doesn't?" She sighed, closing the laptop halfway. "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" Vanessa looked at him, and for a moment something flickered. Hesitation, maybe even guilt. But it passed. "I just think you're capable of more," she said. "And it feels like you're choosing not to reach it." The words landed harder than she intended, or maybe exactly as she intended. Adrian stood there, absorbing them, choosing not to reach it. Was that what she believed? That his life, his choices, were simply a lack of ambition? "I'm not trying to be him," Adrian said finally. "I'm not asking you to be him." Her voice softened, but it didn't comfort. "I'm asking you to be more than this." That night, they lay in bed facing opposite directions. The space between them wasn't physical. It was something deeper, something that couldn't be closed with a touch or a word. Adrian stared at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every pause, every subtle shift he had tried to ignore. He understood something now. This wasn't about one argument. It wasn't about work. It was about perception. Vanessa was no longer seeing him as the man she fell in love with. She was seeing him as someone lacking. And once that lens forms, it changes everything. Across the room, Vanessa scrolled through her phone in the dark. A message from Ethan lit up the screen. "You were brilliant tonight. You should think bigger. You're built for it." She read it twice, then a third time. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, before typing back, "Maybe I already am." She locked her phone and set it down, but sleep didn't come easily. Because somewhere beneath the ambition, beneath the validation, beneath the thrill of being seen, there was a quiet, persistent thought she couldn't silence. Why did Adrian's silence feel heavier than any words Ethan could say? In the days that followed, the distance became more defined, more real, more irreversible. And yet Adrian said nothing. Because part of him still believed something fragile and dangerous. That love, if given enough patience, could survive anything, even this. It didn't begin as a fight. That's what Vanessa would remember later. The most dangerous arguments never announce themselves. They start in the quiet spaces, in the accumulation of things left unsaid. That evening, the rain came down over Manhattan in soft, relentless sheets, blurring the city into streaks of light and shadow. Inside the apartment, everything was still. Too still. Adrian sat at the dining table, reviewing a set of blueprints under the warm glow of a single lamp. His focus was steady, precise. Lines, measurements, structure.
Things that made sense. Things that didn't change without reason. The front door opened.
Vanessa stepped in, heels clicking sharply against the floor, her presence cutting through the silence like a blade. She didn't say hello. She didn't need to. Adrian looked up anyway. "Hey." "Hey," she replied, already shrugging off her coat, her movements quick, restless. Something was off. Not new, but sharper tonight. "You're late," Adrian said gently. "I told you I had a dinner." "With Ethan?" The name hung in the air. Vanessa paused for half a second, then, "Yes." Adrian nodded slowly, folding the edge of the blueprint with deliberate care. "How was it?" "Productive. Not nice, not fun. Productive." He absorbed that. She moved into the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water, but her grip on the glass was tighter than necessary. The silence stretched again, longing this time, heavier. Finally, she spoke. "You're still working on that same project?" Adrian glanced down. "It's a long-term design." "How long-term?" "A few months, maybe more." Vanessa let out a quiet breath, half sigh, half frustration. "Of course." Adrian looked up again. "What does that mean?" She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "It means you're always here," she said, "doing the same things, working on the same scale." "I like what I do." "I know you like it," she replied quickly. "That's not the point." "Then what is?" Her eyes met his, and this time she didn't look away. "The point is, you're not moving forward, Adrian." The words were sharper now, clearer. "I am," he said calmly, "just not in the way you want me to." Vanessa let out a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. "That's exactly the problem." The tension snapped into place. No more subtlety, no more hesitation. Just truth, raw and unfiltered. "You don't see it, do you?" Vanessa said, pushing off the counter, pacing slightly now. "Everyone around us is evolving, growing, taking risks." "And I'm not?" Adrian asked. "You're comfortable." The word landed like an accusation. Adrian stood up slowly, the chair scraping softly against the floor. "And what's wrong with being comfortable?" "Because comfortable doesn't get you anywhere," she shot back. "It doesn't build anything bigger than what you already have." "I'm not trying to build something bigger," Adrian said. "I'm trying to build something meaningful." Vanessa shook her head, frustration spilling over now. "Meaningful doesn't pay attention in this city. It doesn't open doors. It doesn't make people respect you." Adrian's gaze hardened slightly. "Is that what this is about? Respect?" "It's about reality," she snapped. "You think love and passion are enough to sustain a life here? They're not." A pause, a dangerous one. "Is that what you think we have?" Adrian asked quietly. "Just not enough?" Vanessa hesitated. For a moment, just a moment, there was a chance she could step back, say something softer, something that would bend instead of break. But she didn't, because the truth, once it rises, doesn't like being silenced. "I think," she began, her voice steadier now, colder. "I think you've stopped trying to be more than you already are." Adrian didn't move. "And I think," she continued, "I've been pretending that's okay." The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Adrian took a slow breath. "So what are you saying?" Vanessa looked at him, really looked at him this time.
Not with love, not with doubt, but with something final. "You're not enough, Adrian." The words didn't echo. They didn't need to. They settled. Deep. Permanent. For a second, nothing happened. No shouting, no immediate reaction. Just silence. The kind that feels like the world has paused to see what comes next. Adrian blinked once, twice, as if adjusting to a reality that had just shifted. He could have argued. He could have defended himself, listed everything he had built, everything he had given, everything he had been for her. He could have pointed out the nights he stayed up supporting her, the quiet sacrifices, the steady presence she once relied on. He could have fought, but he didn't. Because in that moment he understood something with painful clarity. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a bad night. This was how she saw him now. Adrian nodded slowly, not in agreement, but in acceptance. "Okay," he said. That was it. One word. Calm. Even. Vanessa frowned slightly, caught off guard. "That's it?" He held her gaze. "What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Something," she replied, her voice tightening. "You're just going to stand there and accept that?" Adrian considered her question, then answered honestly. "You've already made up your mind." "That's not—" "It is," he said gently, not raising his voice. "And arguing won't change it." Vanessa felt something twist in her chest, but she pushed it down. "So you're just giving up?" Adrian shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "I'm letting go." The difference hit harder than she expected. He walked past her then, calm, composed, as if the ground beneath them hadn't just cracked open. Vanessa turned, watching him. "What are you doing?" Adrian didn't answer immediately. He moved into the bedroom, pulling a small travel bag from the closet. Only then did it register. "You're leaving?" Still no answer. He folded a few shirts, picked up his watch, his wallet. Each movement precise, final. "Adrian," she said, her voice sharper now. "This is ridiculous. We're in the middle of a conversation." He paused for a second, then looked at her. And for the first time that night, there was something in his eyes she didn't recognize. Not anger, not sadness, just distance. "There's nothing left to talk about." Vanessa's breath caught. "You're seriously walking out? Over this?" Adrian zipped the bag. "It's not just this." "Then what is it?" she demanded. He held her gaze one last time, but the words never came, because everything that needed to be said already had been. He walked to the door, hand on the handle. A pause, not for hesitation, but for closure. Vanessa waited. For something. An apology, a reaction, anything. But Adrian didn't turn back. The door opened, then closed. Quietly. And just like that, he was gone. Without a word. The silence he left behind was louder than any argument. Vanessa stood there, unmoving, her heart beating faster than she expected. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was supposed to fight, to prove her wrong, to try. Instead, he chose to leave. And for the first time, Vanessa felt something unfamiliar creep in beneath the anger. Not regret. Not yet. But something close. Doubt. Grief didn't come for Vanessa the way people said it would. There were no sleepless nights at first, no tears soaking into pillows, no desperate attempts to call Adrian back. Instead, there was silence, clean, efficient, convenient, just like the life she was stepping into. 2 weeks after Adrian left,
Vanessa moved through Manhattan as if nothing had changed. Her routine stayed intact, her work performance sharpened, her social calendar expanded, and Ethan Blake became constant. "You handled that room like a strategist," Ethan said one evening, his voice smooth, measured, as they stepped out of a private elevator into the rooftop lounge of a luxury hotel. Vanessa smiled. "That's because I am one." He chuckled, placing a hand lightly on her lower back as they walked. The gesture was confident, practiced. Everything about Ethan felt practiced. But at first, that was exactly what she needed. He didn't hesitate. He didn't question. He didn't sit in silence trying to understand emotions that didn't need solving. He moved fast. And Vanessa followed. Within a month, she was spending more nights at his penthouse than her own apartment. The space was everything Adrian's wasn't. Larger, higher, filled with glass, steel, and carefully curated luxury. A skyline view that didn't just show the city, it dominated it. "This is more your world," Ethan said once, handing her a glass of champagne. Vanessa looked around. He was right, wasn't he? Their relationship wasn't built on slow understanding. It was built on alignment, shared ambition, shared energy, shared hunger for more. They talked about expansion, investments, influence, about networks, leverage, timing. Words that felt powerful. Words that made Vanessa feel like she was finally accelerating. "You think differently than most people," Ethan told her one night, his eyes studying her like she was an opportunity worth calculating. "You don't settle." Vanessa felt something warm at that. Validation, recognition. "You don't either," she replied. "No," he said simply. "That's why I don't stay around people who do." The sentence passed quickly, too quickly. At first, she didn't think about it. Weeks turned into months. Photos of their life appeared online, carefully framed glimpses of dinners, events, city lights. Comments flooded in. "Power couple. Goals. This is what success looks like." Vanessa read them all, and for a while she believed them. But perfection has a rhythm, and once you start noticing it, you can't unsee it. It began with small things. Ethan always checked his phone mid-conversation, not subtly, not apologetically, just naturally, as if whatever was on the screen always mattered more. "You're not listening," Vanessa said one night, setting her fork down. "I am," Ethan replied, eyes still on his phone. "You're saying the client is hesitating. Increase pressure." "That's not what I said." He finally looked up, mildly amused. "Then simplify it." Vanessa stared at him. There was no curiosity in his eyes, no desire to understand the nuance, just solutions. Fast, efficient, detached. With Adrian, conversations had space. With Ethan, they had outcomes. Another night, another event, another room filled with people who measured worth in numbers. Vanessa stood beside Ethan as he spoke effortlessly about a new deal. Millions, maybe more. People leaned in, laughed at the right moments, admired him. She watched. This was what she thought she wanted. "Stay close," Ethan murmured to her as someone important approached. "This one's useful." Useful. The word lingered. Later, in the car, Vanessa looked out the window. The city blurring past again, just like that night with Adrian. But this time, the silence felt different. "So what did you think?" Ethan asked. "About what?" "Tonight." She hesitated. "It was impressive." Vanessa folded the paper again, slower this time. And as she stood there, in the quiet space that used to be theirs, a realization began to form. Not fully, not clearly,
but enough to disturb the illusion she had been living in. Maybe this new life wasn't an upgrade. Maybe it was just louder. And for the first time since Adrian left, the silence he once filled began to feel irreplaceable. Success came quickly after that, faster than Vanessa expected. Within 6 months, she was promoted, corner office, higher salary, bigger clients. Her name appeared in industry articles, her campaigns studied and replicated. Invitations arrived daily, each one more exclusive than the last. From the outside, her life had become exactly what people chased. From the inside, it felt strangely quiet.
You should celebrate this properly.
Ethan stood behind her, adjusting the strap of her dress before an event. His tone approving but distant, like he was reviewing a deal rather than a moment. Vanessa met his eyes in the mirror. "This is celebrating." He smirked. "No, this is networking." She almost laughed. Almost. The gala was everything it needed to be. Perfect lighting, curated guest list, polished conversations. Vanessa moved through the room effortlessly, her smile precise, her words calculated. "Vanessa Hart, right?" a man said, extending his hand. "I've been following your work. Impressive." "Thank you," she replied smoothly. "And Ethan Blake," he added, glancing toward where Ethan stood across the room, already deep in another conversation. "You two are quite the force." Vanessa followed his gaze. Ethan didn't look at her. He didn't need to. In this world, presence wasn't about connection. It was about positioning. Later that night, as the event blurred into champagne and surface-level admiration, Vanessa found herself standing alone near the balcony. The city stretched beneath her again, glittering, endless. She had stood in front of views like this so many times now, and yet they felt less meaningful each time. "You disappeared." Ethan's voice came from behind her. She turned slightly, just needed air. He stepped beside her, glancing out briefly before checking his phone. "Good turnout tonight," he said. "We made some useful connections." Vanessa watched him. "We?" she asked quietly. He didn't catch the tone. "Of course." A pause. Then she said, "Do you ever just enjoy things without thinking about what they lead to?" Ethan frowned faintly. "That's not how this works." "How what works?" "Life," he said simply. "Everything leads to something. If it doesn't, it's a waste of time." A waste of time. Vanessa turned back to the city. The words didn't sit right. Not anymore. That night, back at his penthouse, Ethan poured them both a drink. "To your promotion," he said, raising his glass. Vanessa clinked it lightly. "To progress." They drank, but the word lingered. Progress. Forward. Always forward. Ethan set his glass down and stepped closer, his hand resting on her waist, pulling her in with a confidence that felt expected. Not tender, not hesitant, just certain. "You've been different lately," he murmured. Vanessa didn't pull away. "How?" Distracted. She met his eyes. "Maybe I'm just tired." "Of what?" She hesitated, then answered honestly, though quietly. "I don't know." Ethan studied her for a moment, then smiled, reassuring, controlled. "You're just adjusting," he said. "This level takes time." Vanessa nodded slightly. Adjusting. That was one way to describe it. But deep down, it didn't feel like growth. It felt like distance. Later, as they lay in bed, Ethan fell asleep quickly, his breathing steady, unaffected. Vanessa remained awake. Again, the ceiling above her was unfamiliar. The silence beside her even more so. She reached for her phone, scrolling aimlessly. Emails, notifications, messages. All movement, all noise. None of it meant anything in that moment. Then, without intending to, her mind drifted to a different kind of night. A quieter one.
Did you eat? Adrian's voice soft from the kitchen. I'll eat later, she had replied, distracted, typing on her laptop. A pause, then footsteps, a plate placed gently beside her. You'll forget, he said simply.
Vanessa closed her eyes. The memory hit harder than she expected. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just precise. Like something she had misplaced and only now realized the value of. She opened her eyes again. The room returned. Cold. Perfect. Empty. The next morning, she stood in front of the mirror, preparing for another day, another meeting, another performance. You coming tonight? Ethan asked from across the room, buttoning his shirt. What is it? Dinner. Investors. Important. Vanessa adjusted her earring. Do I need to be there? Ethan glanced at her. It would help. Help. She nodded. Of course. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Numbers, projections, expanses, populations are playing. One of the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 1, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 4, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 3, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 9, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 4, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 6, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 4, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 6, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 2, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 6, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 4, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 6, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 6, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 4, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 3, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 3, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 6, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 6, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 4, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 6, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 4, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Number 6, projection. At the restaurant that evening, the conversations were sharper than ever. Were sharper than ever. Projections, expansions. Vanessa played her role flawlessly. She smiled when needed, spoke when expected, But inside, something had begun to disconnect. One of the investors leaned toward her.
You and Ethan make a strong pair. Very efficient. Efficient. Vanessa smiled politely, but the word echoed. Efficient. Productive. Useful.
She had heard them all before. From Ethan, from others, from herself. But there was one word she hadn't heard in a long time. Not here. Not in this life.
Loved. The realization came quietly. Dangerously.
After dinner, in the car, Ethan scrolled through his phone again. "Good night," he said. "They're interested." Vanessa stared out the window. "That's good." He glanced at her briefly. "You don't sound excited." "I am." "You don't look it." She turned to him, and for the first time, she didn't try to fix it.
"What are we doing, Ethan?" He frowned slightly. "What do you mean?"
"This," she said, gesturing between them. "Us." Ethan leaned back, considering.
"We're building something," he said.
"What kind of something?" He met her eyes.
"Something that works."
"Works." Vanessa held his gaze, and in that moment, she understood.
This wasn't love. It was alignment. It was convenience. It was two people moving in the same direction without ever truly seeing each other.
She looked away slowly, back at the city. Everything she had wanted was finally hers.
And yet, it felt like she had traded something invisible, something quiet, something irreplaceable,
for something louder, colder, temporary. The victory was real, but it was hollow. And the worst part, she was the one who chose it.
Silence has a way of changing over time. At first it feels like freedom, clean, undemanding, almost peaceful. Then it becomes space, and eventually it becomes something else entirely.
Vanessa didn't notice when the shift happened. Only that one day, the life she had built, the one filled with movement, voices, constant validation, started to feel strangely muted. Not quiet, just empty beneath the noise.
Her days remained packed, meetings stacked back to back, presentations delivered flawlessly, decisions made with precision. She was sharper now, more decisive, more respected, but also more alone.
"You've been incredible lately." Her boss's voice cut through the conference room as the meeting wrapped up. "This is exactly the level we need." Vanessa smiled, nodding. "Thank you." And she meant it. She had earned this. Every late night, every calculated move.
But as she gathered her things, something lingered in her chest. Not pride, not excitement, just absence. She walked out into the city, the cold air brushing against her skin.
People moved quickly around her, each one chasing something, just like her. Her phone buzzed, a message from Ethan. "Dinner tonight, 8 p.m., don't be late." Vanessa stared at it for a moment. No question, no warmth, just expectation.
She typed back, "I might be late, still at work."
A few seconds passed, then, "Try not to be." She locked her phone, and for reasons she couldn't fully explain, that message felt heavier than it should have.
Later that evening, Vanessa sat across from Ethan at a quiet, expensive restaurant.
Candlelight flickered between them. Everything looked right. Everything felt wrong. "You're distracted again," Ethan said, cutting into his steak. "I'm just tired." "You've been tired a lot lately." Vanessa forced a small smile. "That's what success looks like, right?" Ethan didn't smile back. "That's what commitment looks like."
Commitment. Vanessa glanced down at her plate. A memory surfaced, uninvited.
"You don't have to push yourself this hard," Adrian's voice, calm, steady. "I want to," she had replied. "I know," he said, "but wanting something shouldn't cost you everything else." She blinked, returning to the present. Ethan was watching her now. "What?" he asked. "Nothing." But it wasn't nothing. It hadn't been for a while. That night she didn't stay over. "I have an early morning," she said, gathering her things. Ethan nodded, already checking his phone. "Text me when you get home." She almost asked why, but she didn't. The apartment felt colder than she remembered. Not physically, emotionally. Vanessa stepped inside, placing her bag down slowly. For a moment, she just stood there, listening. Nothing. No soft footsteps, no quiet presence in the next room. No voice asking how her day was. She walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, closed it again. Everything was exactly as she had left it, but it didn't feel like hers anymore. She moved to the living room, sat down, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't reach for her phone. Instead, she let the silence settle. It didn't take long. Her mind filled it for her. Adrian sitting across from her, sketching quietly. The sound of his pencil against paper. The way he would glance up, not to interrupt, just to check if she was okay. "You're thinking too much again." She had rolled her eyes. "That's what I do, and it's exhausting you." "I'm fine." He had smiled softly. "You don't always have to be." Vanessa inhaled sharply, her chest tightening. The memory felt closer now. Clearer. Not because she was holding on to it, but because there was nothing left to drown it out. She stood up abruptly, pacing. This was ridiculous. She had moved on. She had built something better, something bigger. So why did it feel like something essential was missing? Her phone buzzed again. "Ethan, did you get home?" She stared at the message, then typed, "Yes." A pause. Then another message. "Good. Big day tomorrow. Get rest." Vanessa read it twice. There was care in it, technically, but it felt distant, measured. She set the phone down, and suddenly it became clear. Ethan cared about her the way he cared about everything else in his life, in terms of function, efficiency, value. Adrian had cared differently, not because she was useful. Not because she added something, but because she was her. Vanessa sank back onto the couch, the realization settling deep. She had spent so much time chasing what looked like more that she hadn't noticed what she was losing. And now, it was gone. Not dramatically, not loudly, just quietly, like he had left. Days passed. Then weeks. The feeling didn't fade. It deepened. Every success felt slightly muted. Every conversation slightly hollow. Every moment slightly off. Until one evening, without planning to, she found herself walking past a familiar street, Adrian's old office. The lights were on. Vanessa stopped, her heart beating faster than it should have. She hadn't seen him in months, hadn't heard from him, hadn't even tried. And yet, standing there, it felt like everything unresolved had been waiting for this moment. She took a step closer, then stopped. What would she even say? The truth? That she had been wrong? That everything she thought she wanted didn't feel the way she expected? That his absence was louder than anything in her life now? Vanessa exhaled slowly. For the first time, she understood something she hadn't before. Silence wasn't empty. It carried weight, and Adrian's silence, the one he left it with, was heavier than any words she had ever spoken. Time didn't heal everything, but it changed the shape of the pain. 3 years later, Vanessa Hart had everything she once fought for. A senior executive position, a network that spanned industries, a life that looked effortless from the outside. And yet, she no longer mistook that image for truth. Her relationship with Ethan had ended quietly a year before. No dramatic betrayal, no explosive ending, just a gradual realization that neither of them had ever truly been in it. "We work well together," Ethan had said during their final conversation, calm as ever. "But that's not the same as wanting a life together." For once, Vanessa agreed. Since then, her life had become simpler. Not smaller, just clearer. Fewer events, fewer empty conversations, more silence. And this time, she didn't run from it. It was a late autumn afternoon when everything shifted again. The kind of day where the air felt crisp, the sky pale, the city just a little quieter than usual. Vanessa wasn't dressed for attention. No sharp heels, no statement pieces. Just a long coat, her hair loosely tied back. She had learned something over the years. Not every moment needed to be performed. The bookstore was small, tucked between two larger buildings, easy to miss unless you were looking for it. Vanessa wasn't. Not consciously. She stepped inside, more out of habit than intention, the faint scent of paper and wood grounding her instantly. For a moment, she just wandered. No phone, no urgency. Until she saw him. Adrian Cole stood near the back, flipping through a book, his posture relaxed, his presence quiet in a way that hadn't changed. But something else had. He looked lighter. Not in appearance, in energy. Vanessa stopped walking. Her breath caught just slightly. Not dramatic, but real. 3 years. And somehow, he looked exactly like himself. Adrian glanced up. Their eyes met. For a second, time didn't move. Then he smiled. Soft. Polite. Vanessa. Her name. Spoken like it belonged to the present, not the past. Adrian. Her voice was steady. She had imagined this moment before. Many times. But not like this. Not calm. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said. "Yeah," he replied lightly. "I come here sometimes." A pause. "And you?" Vanessa glanced around. "Just passing by." There was no tension, no visible discomfort. Just two people standing in the same space, who used to be something more. "You look good," Adrian said. Simple, honest. "Thank you," she replied. "You too." And he did. Not because of success, not because of appearance, but because he looked at peace, something she hadn't seen before. "What have you been up to?" she asked. Adrian closed the book in his hands. "Still designing, smaller projects, some community work." Vanessa blinked slightly. "Community work?" He nodded. "Affordable housing, public spaces, things that matter in a different way." Different. The word settled gently. "And you?" he asked. "Still in marketing," she said. "Executive level now." Adrian smiled faintly. "I'm not surprised." There was no edge to it. No comparison. Just recognition. Vanessa studied him, waiting for something. A hint of the past. A question. A trace of what they used to be. But it didn't come. Instead, Adrian simply stood there, present, unburdened. And that was when she realized something she hadn't prepared for. He wasn't holding on to anything. Not anger, not resentment, not even regret. "You seem different," she said quietly. Adrian tilted his head slightly. "Different how?" Vanessa hesitated, then answered honestly. "Like none of it stayed with you." A small pause. Then Adrian smiled. Not dismissive, not defensive, just certain. "It did," he said, "just not in the way you think." Vanessa felt her chest tighten slightly. What does that mean? He looked at her, not through her, not past her. At her. "It means I learned what I needed to learn," he said. "And then I let it go." Let it go. So simply said. So impossibly done. Vanessa nodded slowly. trying to process something she hadn't expected to feel.
Not rejection, but distance. Real distance. The kind that doesn't come from anger, but from healing.
"I'm glad you're doing well," she said, and she meant it. Adrian held her gaze for a moment, then nodded. "You too." Another pause. This one softer. Vanessa could feel it, the moment slipping. If she didn't say something now, it would end here. Just a coincidence, a brief crossing of paths, nothing more. Adrian. He waited. There were so many things she could say. "I was wrong. I didn't understand. I miss you." But the words felt heavy. Too late. Instead, she asked something simpler, something safer. "Are you happy?" Adrian didn't hesitate.
Yes.
No explanation. No elaboration.
Just truth.
Vanessa swallowed softly, because for the first time, she believed him.
Not because he said it, but because she could see it.
And that hurt more than she expected. Not in a sharp way.
In a quiet, undeniable way.
"I'm glad," she said again. Adrian nodded once, then glanced toward the front of the store.
"I should go," he said.
Of course. Vanessa felt the moment closing.
This was it. No second chances. No unresolved tension. Just an ending.
Again. "It was good seeing you," he added. And the way he said it
Made it clear.
that it was enough. Vanessa forced a small smile. Yeah, it was. Adrian turned, walked away. No hesitation, no looking back. The door opened, then closed. And just like that, he was gone. Again. But this time, it wasn't silence that followed. It was understanding, and it came too late. There are endings that arrive like storms, loud, chaotic, impossible to ignore. And then there are endings like this one. Quiet, complete, unchangeable. Vanessa didn't move for a long time after Adrian left the bookstore. The soft chime of the door had faded. The space returned to its usual stillness. People passed around her, unaware that something irreversible had just settled into place. She stood there, not heartbroken, not shattered, just aware that something had ended long before this moment, and she had only just caught up to it. Outside, the city continued as it always did. Cars moved, voices blended, life pressed forward. Vanessa stepped out into it slowly, her breath visible in the cold air. Everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same, because now there was no illusion left to hold on to. She walked without direction, her heels echoing softly against the pavement. For years she had filled every silence, with ambition, with noise, with people who made her feel like she was moving forward. But now, there was nothing left to distract her from the truth. Adrian had loved her. Not loudly, not performatively, but in the quiet ways that were easy to overlook until they were gone. She remembered everything now. Not selectively, not defensively. Clearly, the way he would wait for her to finish speaking without interrupting. The way he noticed when she was overwhelmed before she admitted it. The way he stayed steady when everything else in her life demanded more. He had never tried to compete with the world. He had simply tried to be present in it, with her. And she had mistaken that for a lack of ambition. Vanessa stopped walking. The realization settled deeper this time. Not sharp, not dramatic, permanent. "I think you're capable of more." Her own voice echoed in her memory. "You're not enough, Adrian." The sentence didn't sound the same anymore. It no longer felt like truth. It felt like loss. A loss she had created, and one she could never undo. Weeks passed after that day. Then months. Vanessa didn't try to find him, didn't reach out, didn't ask mutual contacts. Because she understood something now that she hadn't before. Closure doesn't always come from conversations. Sometimes It comes from acceptance. And Adrian had already accepted everything. She was the one still learning how. Her life didn't collapse. It didn't need to. She still had her career, her reputation, her independence. But the way she moved through it changed. She spoke less, listened more, walked slower. Not because she had lost everything, but because she had finally understood what mattered and what didn't. One evening, she returned to her old apartment. Not to stay, just to visit. The space had been renovated, modernized, different. But something about it still held echoes of what used to be. Vanessa stood by the window, the same place she used to stand years ago, staring at her reflection instead of the city. Now she looked past it, at the skyline, at the movement, at the life she had once tried so hard to outrun. And for the first time, she didn't feel behind. She felt still, not in a way that trapped her, in a way that grounded her. Her phone buzzed softly. A message from a colleague. Another opportunity, another event. Vanessa looked at it. Then she turned the screen off. Not everything needed a response anymore. Some things were meant to be left behind. Somewhere else in the city, Adrian walked through a quiet street, hands in his coat pockets, his pace unhurried. He had built a life that didn't need validation. A life that didn't compete. A life that felt like his. He didn't think about Vanessa often. Not because she didn't matter, but because she no longer held weight in his present. And that was the difference. Back in the apartment, Vanessa closed her eyes briefly. There were no more questions left. No more what-ifs to chase. Just one truth. Clear and unchangeable. She hadn't lost Adrian because he wasn't enough. She lost him because she didn't know how to recognize what was. And by the time she understood, he no longer belonged to that version of her life. The city lights flickered on, one by one. Vanessa opened her eyes. For a moment, there was a quiet ache in her chest. Not overwhelming, but constant. The kind that doesn't fade, only softens with time. Regret. Not loud. Not destructive, just present, like a shadow that follows, even when everything else moves forward. And in the end, that was what remained. Not the arguments, not the ambition, not the illusion of something better, but the quiet understanding that some people come into your life not to stay forever, but to show you what love was supposed to feel like before you were ready to keep it.